Live. So, Lamika, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you,
Awesome.
Jessica?
I'm good. I'm good. This is new technology. We put it out there for the masses to join us in we've had a few. This is our third episode for the 20-minute power talk. And previously we've done them on IG Live. And you are my business bestie. So you do a lot of education. You're like, well, why don't we do this?
Yeah, try it out. Let's see what happens.
So one moment here, because I
Okay.
hear back, I'm hearing, here we go. There we go. Okay. I had YouTube going on in the background, so I heard us in my ear
Okay.
because it went live. All right. So, for sake of time, though, what I was going to say is that you had a great point, which is being able to reach the masses. Because today's conversation, all conversations we've had have been really informative,
Mhm.
but I wanted to be able to get more information out to people because, especially in this market, talking about real estate specifically, we are what's called a seller's market. And in that seller's market, you're going to encounter people that will know the market or not know the market.
Mhm.
And buyers, they may be at a disadvantage right now because the interest rates are higher, the home prices are higher, but you have limited inventory, which makes it be a seller's market. What does a seller's market mean to you?
That I'm not going to find a deal. It's gonna be a little harder for me to find a deal.
Okay. Okay. And so if you were selling your house, let's switch it to you not being a buyer. If you were a
Mhm.
seller, are you happy that you're in a seller's market?
For sure.
Okay. And what do you think what makes it be a seller's market in your mind? And I don't want a real estate answer. I want
Right.
someone you had the experience, but let's just talk about that.
Right. What makes it a seller's market? I mean, I've got multiple people wanting to buy the home. I mean, there are more buyers, I guess, than sellers. And I can get the maximum. I want to be able to get the maximum amount of money for my house.
Right, right. And so what happens is, you feel for the buyers. It's great time. We as agents say, get the listing, get the listing. But when an agent gets a listing, they have the responsibility to make sure that the sellers are informed and put to their best advantage. So what today is as a 20-minute power talk, seller savvy, don't lessen your potential profit. That came to mind because I work in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, and I've had thankfully some quite a few listings this year, and I'm in a county called Prince George's County. And so I work that area often. I'll work Charles County, Frederick, and other areas as well. But what happens is the good thing is I've had a lot of exposure to a couple of particular neighborhoods. And so
Mhm.
I watch them ongoing. So fortunately, when somebody contacts me to say, hey, or I'm reaching out to them, I want to sell my house, I can say, what community are you in?
Mhm.
And that's where we're going to start this process of educating the sellers because it's more than just me asking the seller, okay, well, you have a house. Let me know how much you think your house is worth,
Mhm.
right?
I want the most.
You want the most. And so when you're going through that process, do you do anything? If you were going to sell your house, how do you think you're going to get the most for your money, the most for your bang for your buck?
Well, if I mean, I would be asking my agent, like, what, obviously I have an idea of what I want. I mean, but if, I want my house to sell for 600,000, but you're like, girl, that ain't what. So I would be leaning on my agent to tell me, like, am I in line with what I'm asking for my home and to be able to give me I guess, the data to say this is what the home could sell for.
That's it. That's a key word is data. Agents have to bring the data to the table.
Hmm.
Having your experience coupled with the data is what's going to make that experience be the best buying situation for a seller. The
Okay.
seller can say to me, hey, I've been in my house for 30, 40 years, 10 years. They have the intrinsic value. They have emotions tied to that home, some good emotions, bad emotions, etc. They got memories there. Little Timmy was raised there. He broke his first tooth on the corner of the house. So, that may be extra $1,000 to them. But to the buyer, they don't care about that,
At all.
right? They want to care about how did you price this house? And so, what I like to educate my sellers with is this: when you first decide to get your house in the market, it is a decision. It is to your best advantage if you can actually time it properly. It doesn't take, let's say, 6 months to get your house on the market from a marketable perspective, unless there are physical things in place where maybe your house has some outdated equipment. You need to get it what I call show ready, where you do some decluttering and things of that nature.
Mhm.
Those are some of the obvious things that any good agent will go over with someone. And sometimes those things may cost somebody a little bit of money. And so you have to wonder, okay, well, if my house is outdated, let's say, for instance, my house is built in 1997. So if I want to compete with other homes that are newer homes, the home itself is already aged. So
Right.
I'm not going to have the same value as you would with the house as 2018. Okay. To an extent, meaning that there are things when the appraiser is going to come in and things of that nature. So unless you're in a community that is one that is highly sought after and there's very limited activity out there, there are different factors that will come into play. But in a community where you have a lot of activity, that's when you really can't set the market. Okay. So if you said to me, hey, Jessica, I want to sell my house, I'll say, okay, well, where do you live? Give me the address. I'm going to immediately go and look up. I'm going to look to see for what I could tell. I'm going to ask you questions like, how much did you pay? Why am I asking you, what did you pay for your home? Or no, what do you owe on your home rather? Okay. That's because that's going to be a bottom line of letting us know from the beginning. Sellers want to make money when you sell a home. You're not in it just because you like going through the emotional ups and downs and all of those things. You're typically in it for a profit. So what I like to do is say, okay, well, Mr. and Miss XYZ person, or Mr. and Miss Jackson, for instance, your home, you paid, let's say $300,000 for it just a few years ago. The current market may have $468,000 out there. Obviously, the goal is for you to have some natural equity built into the home because you've been making mortgage payments on it. Assume you have a mortgage. Unless they pay cash, then you still have how much you've made, how much you put into the home to begin with. So now the goal is to have that agent to do the research to say, I will say to you, well, what do you think you would like to list your house for? And oftentimes they'll give me a number that's too high because they'll think that's what their home is worth to them. Now, if they watch the market, excluding things such as other syndicate sites out there, like your okay, these sites out there, I don't want to give them advertising.
Right. Unless we get a check.
Correct. Then, they may look at those values. So when they look at those other major sites, if you read the fine print, it will often tell you there's a 15% differential in what the numbers are actually going to be. So that's why people really want to engage an agent. An agent is going to market your house from the perspective of the physical marketing of it to what I say physical, meaning like blasting it out to the sites, getting people in for the showing, etc. But the other part is educating the seller on how are we going to price this? So when I ask about the comps, I'm going to actually tell you about the comps, not ask about the comps.
So let me ask you this. So the comps, when as a seller, is that something that you will provide before I ask, or is that something that I need to, that a seller would need to ask to be able to?
The way you roll with Jessica Townsend, with this Jessica Townsend experience, as we call the JTE, is I'm going to be equipped with telling you what your comps are.
Okay.
Because that's what you're paying me for as part of this research. You don't want to have an agent where you're saying that you did all the work. You had to market yourself. You had to do the show. Unless you're doing a for sale by owner, that's a different story. And even then, I would encourage people to try not to go that route because it's a lot of things you have to do. But if I'm going to represent you, I'm going to tell you, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, I have already gone, or Mr., whomever it's going to be, this client, I'm going to do the research for you. And in this, here are the most recent sales. Here's what's currently on the market. So we can look at what those prices were. So if something just closed, because the closed sales is what's really going to be your key for that. We don't want to go back more than really 60 days if the market is there, meaning that there's homes that have been having transactions take place. Sometimes in some communities, if they've had limited homes, then you may have to go back a little bit further. But understand what the market, like Joe said, today's price is not yesterday's price. It really does change. There are some homes that will retain the value from, let's say, January to now. Some of them may have gone up. Some of them may have slightly gone down. But the slightly gone down, well, why is that happening? Okay. So I would look in and say the homes in this community going back the last 30, 60, 90 days, the max I do is 180 days to see how many houses there have been that are comparable to yours, whether it be bedrooms, like the number of bedrooms, the square footage, the different amenities that are in not even the community, because that's still intrinsic value as well.
Uh-huh.
But the actual home itself, how does it compare to others? If you have a 250 square foot home and somebody has a 500 square foot home, are those comparables?
No, no.
Right. So if that 500 square foot home is marketed at 300,000, do you think you're going to get the $300,000 for that home that you have?
Girl, yeah.
Good luck. Right. So that's why we have to do that research. So I don't want to get too nitty gritty on me honing in on this. So, but go ahead.
Right. So, okay. So for someone, I mean, I've, bought and sold a couple. So for someone who I guess does not know this or they may have, I mean, it's been a minute since I've sold. So, I mean, so I guess as a seller, what should they come prepared with? Or is the onus all on the agent to give them this information? And what happens if we don't agree on what those comps are?
Good questions. So a lot of times you as the seller and the buyer, seller and the agent, they won't necessarily disagree on the comps. The neighbors live in the community. So once they start deciding, which is why I tell people, if you're going to put your house in the market, it's best to kind of know this at least a couple of months in advance. I mean, I can market your house quickly, but are we going to get the best for you when you were potentially under the gun because you may be at a loss now because let's say you're pre-foreclosure or something of that nature? People tend to make rash decisions then. And even now in the market that it is, if you are close to pre-foreclosure, people have still made profits off of that because the home prices have still been maintaining. So that could be a whole other live on that. But it's up to the agent to come prepare that information. We cannot tell the seller, you absolutely have to list your house at this amount. If it comes back and the seller says, I want to sell my house for 600,000, and I'll say, hey, Mr. Whomever it is, the last sale in your community, just down the street within a mile, maybe a max 2 miles away, I try to stay within a limited amount, was $580,000. And if your house looks just like that other house, you may have had some hardwood floors and things of that nature, but the things are really true or comparable. It would take a lot to get your house to be 600,000. And in a person's mind, that $20,000 makes a difference. And you got to think about if it's going to be appraised to get that amount.
Okay. So question, I don't know if it's going to throw it off or not, but okay. So like in Texas, like we don't know what a home sold for, or it's not disclosed what a home is sold for.
But they should have appraisals you say how do you go ahead?
Right. So like I can I think this is the case. So I guess I'm saying like if I list the house for 600,000, but there's no way for me to know if it actually sold for 600,000. So would that be where how does that play into the whole comps piece of it?
I don't know the disclosure. I'm not licensed in Texas. I've only sold my old homes in Texas, so I may be missing something here, but I will tell you that in our state we have disclosure. So the thing is and you have the appraisers. The appraisers are the ones that are really going to determine what the house is going to sell for. We can price it, but we also have when we have our MLS portal. So it's a Bright system here. I can go in and we have to go in and state what the house closed at. If there's any concessions, let's say, for instance, somebody got $10,000 from the seller for that, it's written in there. So I don't know how you all operate in Texas with not having that disclosure.
Got it. Okay.
But that is something you would discuss with your agent to make sure that that's why they're there. Agents are paying for access to information so they can be able to tell you definitely this is where you are.
Right. That makes sense.
So, but in Maryland and these parts around here, what we do is, and if it was off the market, if it was a transaction that didn't make the MLS, but it still got noted by the county records, those are getting recorded. And so the appraiser is going to have that information. Okay. But before we even get to that point, what I like to do is tell my sellers, let's be realistic. If I have a house, for instance, the community I've sold four homes in right now. One was 2006 that it was built, and it sold at 540 last year. Another one was built in 2018. It sold at 580. This year, I sold one that was built in 2006, but it had like $40,000 of updates in it. Was really, really great on how it looked and how it showed. I listed it at 580. We closed at 570. And then I sold one just a couple of weeks ago that was built in 2010 at 540. Still great condition, no updates to it. It hurts me to the core to see people coming in and listing these homes at a 2018 at $525,000. What that does, it destroys the comps. It destroys the neighborhood.
Right.
Okay?
So what, I mean, how does that typically happen? Is that on the agent side? Is that like, I mean, how does that happen with such a big drop in what they're selling it for?
That's a great question. And if I look at the system and it says that it was a standard transaction, I'm going to think that it's not something that's standard, meaning non-foreclosure,
Mhm.
non-auction. It could be a couple of factors. It could be one that the agent, and I don't like to talk bad about agents. So maybe the agent
Well, I
didn't,
do.
maybe they did or didn't do their research. If
Right.
that person said, the seller says, I want to get out of my house quickly, that's going to be a problem. Or if the agent didn't look at the comps and they just went out and said,
Mhm.
let's just price it out there, but
Right.
they low priced it.
Mhm.
Those are all the factors. This is why I take the time and I will spend some time in a system before I price a home. And if I tell the seller who's relying upon me, this is the value of your home. If they
Mhm.
tell me it's less, then I'm going to say, you know what? This is where I want you to trust me. If I know the condition of your home, you've taken care of the mechanics of it, it markets well, you have these other things in place with it, then by all means, we should be able to compete with the last sale over there.
Okay.
Now, at their house, I'm not, there's a person that I'm talking to recently. They want to sell their house. They've done a lot of updates to it, and they told me 600,000. And that house is built in 2006. I said, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I haven't seen the home yet because when I try to price another home that was built, that was updated,
Mhm.
it competed with the 2018, but you cannot get that 2018 price. So
Yeah.
that's why the appraiser said, no, I'm coming back down on that.
Mhm.
They still gave us credit for the updates to the home, but they have to mark the others down as to the differences.
Okay, so that home that was listed at 525, like what kind of impact does that have on now the other homes that are going to be sold in that same area?
It limits the appreciation of that community. So
Mhm.
when people don't price the homes at the right price, you are now setting a new low standard. Okay.
Mhm.
If somebody paid cash for that home, great. I can see why they did that. There's a couple homes that are now priced well below that, and it hurts my stomach.
Mhm.
Okay. Because I have to wonder, why did they do that? This is to the it's to the detriment of the seller. So when somebody
Yeah, because the seller gonna get the money regardless if somebody pay cash or whether they get a loan, they still getting their money.
right, and it makes it look more attractive by having to go through the financing,
Yeah.
right? And the time frame could be shorter. But how about if they would have just said, "Let's market this house," and I know the last comp was $540,000. That's a
Mhm.
$15,000 differential right there. It
Mhm.
makes it harder for the next person trying to come in and buy, because yes, it's great that they're going to buy for less, but
Mhm.
they're going to say, if your house is being marketed now, you look like you overpriced that house in comparison to someone who's now gone in really low for the pricing.
Got it. Okay.
So that also sets the mark for the people buy real estate. And I tell them, with the idea of increasing in value, you hope that's the case. You hope that it at least maintains the value. So somebody bought a house in 2006 when the market was high at 500,000, and then it went down during the 2008 and 10 or 2008, and
Mhm.
now you're just now recovering. Those are all the factors somebody has taken place.
Right.
So, it's a lot. It's more than just saying, let me just get out of this quickly. I know
Right.
we're running out of time. I could go on for 45 minutes about
No,
this.
no, that makes sense. I think the thing that I got out of it is, as us being, Black African Americans, I think we have some other things against us when it comes to the appraisals of our home. So I think for me, this says that let me make sure that I'm not hurting myself by listing my house less than because, I didn't choose the right agent or I don't know, whatever. So
Mhm.
that's what I get out of this is making sure that I have the right information and working with somebody that can provide me that.
That's exactly right. Because the thing is, if they take the time, get the agent that cares about you, we're going to get paid.
Mhm.
Okay. My thing is, I look for my sellers to get paid first, and that where are they? Especially if you've taken your hard earned money to be in this home, keep it. And we know that the new baseline is here, then
Mhm.
at least come with that. So you want to make sure when you find an agent, not that you're challenging them, but you want somebody to guide you to say, you brought the information to me. This is where the market is. Let's not give your house away. Let's time it appropriately so that we can get the best bang for your buck. And then that way, if we can go up, you never know, but going down lower, it doesn't set it for us and it hurts us. And appraisers aren't even the one lowballing us right now.
Right.
It's really some other people who are uninformed and they're hurting their own communities. But we can always do a part 2 for this because I have plenty of notes. 20 minutes to drop PowerPoints is really tough.
That was good though.
Okay, good. So the takeaway, take some time to list your house. At least give yourself, I'd say 45 days. I can market a house just like this, but to get it ready in the market, get it physically ready, get it fiscally ready so you know what you owe on it. If you have any first, second mortgages on it, any lines of equity, etc. Know you're going to have some agent fees to pay. You may have some seller's concessions to pay, which is money that they want from the seller to help them do the transaction. Also understanding what the comps are in your community, not the ones 3 miles down the road. Know that a house built in 2006 cannot compete with the house in 2020 unless you're like $1 million home or something of that nature. And there's some things very specific about it and it's low inventory in the community and activity. With that being said, the last thing I'm going to say is contact me, Jessica Towns with Coldwell Banker Realty, so I can help you with your real estate needs to make them be reality.
Because she good, y'all.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, not because she my friend, but because she is my friend, but she my friend because she good. Okay.
That girl good. So thank you for joining us. Until next week, we will have a special guest. Kelly Mitchell is my commercial real estate customer. Nope, guest, that's the word. She's my guru. So she's going to be on here talking about that and a couple of little nuggets. So until the next time.
Wait, I see some comments over here.
Oh, please, yes. Go ahead.
I mean, okay, y'all. So I'm on the iPhone today because I ain't on the computer. So I can't, it's real tiny.
Let me tell you what they say. Rachel, she's a realtor in Texas. Thank you, Rachel. She said, love this. Jeff Cook also has experience in real estate. Bobby Culpepper, my girl extraordinaire, says, thanks for sharing. I think a lot of us don't know what we should be prepared for when getting ready to sell. Shireen, another great person, says, as someone who has gotten a taste of the JTE, it was highly appreciated. And my boy, Charles Shearer, Mr. Yip, gave the smiles. So
that's what's up.
If you all are liking this, definitely please, I don't have to like, share, and all that. I'm going to tell you, please like, share, comment, and then you know where to contact me. I can go on for days about these things because I'm passionate about it, and I would love to give more information out there to you all.
Yes, and definitely go check me out. I'm Lamika at The Real About Entrepreneurship. I talk all things entrepreneurship and just figuring it out as we go.
Yes. What did it say? I've heard on her calls with clients before, you can say white glove service, pretend this. She did hear that. So thank you. And we're going to go out with that.